Today, we'll discuss the most important questions for Tesla investors who are weighing near-term execution risk like FSD in China, the new model launches, and Elon Musk's distractions against the company's long-term vision in autonomy, energy, and AI. Investor sentiment seems to be split. The optimists point to the tech leads and the growth catalysts, while the pessimists are expecting execution delays, competition, brand challenges. One thing's for sure, this year is a pivotal year for Tesla. I got my good friend Brian White joining us. Brian has an incredible YouTube channel called FutureAza, all things Tesla, and also all things any car company as well. He does a full deep dive in everything. You're really good, Brian. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Great to be here. There's a lot going on, a lot to weigh. And of course, Tesla is, as we all know, just a car company. So when production is down, of course, everyone gets very, very sad.
Yeah. Well, that's what I want to ask you, right? So let's start with that. So there's near term and there's the long term. Unfortunately, for some reason, this sounds like a repeat of like what we've been saying for the last year as well. Just wait, just you wait. But 2025 is the year, right? It's like a big year, pivotal year for Tesla. But this month in February, we're now in March. We saw the Model Y released. We saw FSD in China. But yet we have this just feeling that the sentiment has just gone. And we'll talk about, Elon and some people are saying this is massive brand damage. But let's start with that though, with what's going on with FSD in China. We'll start with something a little positive and then we'll go on to the other near-term risks.
Right.
Yeah.
We'll talk about China more generally. FSD in China is out. It appears to work as well as it works anywhere, as well as it works in some of the best parts of the US. Now, I know that on version 12, I had viewers who would complain, it doesn't work where I live. And I'd say, great, where do you live? I'm going to do a road trip. Maybe I'll try it. And he said, I'm in Colorado. I said, give me your route. He said, Colorado. And I tried it in Colorado and it didn't work great. It was not good at all. Version 13 has improved on that. Version 13 now works for me in new unknown places, as well as version 11 worked in places where it had been overfit for. So that is good. And we're seeing that in China. But let's talk about China production. If you look at the China charts, someone like Roland Perchard puts out all these charts all the time. And what you see is that, oh man, production deliveries are down of the Model Y, not the Model 3. That's the real test. Model 3 sales are unaffected. Of course, Model Y sales are down when you're changing over to the new model. So sentiment doesn't appear to be negative. A lot of the political headwinds that we see in the US and perhaps in Europe don't apply in the same way in China. They don't care about what Elon is saying about politics in the US. Now, we do have the new 25% tariff taking effect. That could affect sentiment. It hasn't yet, but we'll wait to see on that. A lot of the predictions of doom and gloom are premature and without context.
Yeah, that's a great update in China. So you're basically saying that numbers of production is expected of cars delivery, right? It is down week over week, or in general compared to last year over year. It's actually higher last week, but that's because of the transition of Model Y from the old to the new version. And like you pointed out, the Model 3 seems to be doing incredibly well. And that's a good sign. That's a good signal. It's not demand going down. And then we just did a show on FSD in China, and we showed video after video, and they're just, it's gone viral. And the sentiment of FSD in China is positive, better than the existing systems. And that's what we've been waiting for. So that
I need an ad campaign in China, Herbert. I need billions of views and I need them to watch the full duration of my videos that are perhaps a minute or 20 or an hour long.
Yeah.
And you can't buy that kind of publicity. The only way you get that kind of viral campaign is if it actually works. And I'm sure we will at some point see a fail compilation, because when anything exists in sufficient numbers, failure happens. I've had people trying to tell me that, well, electric cars are still fire prone. And I say, my friend, they are not. They are not. That is misinformation. No, but I've seen videos of fires. Okay, right. But there's tens of millions of electric cars. I don't care that you can find an anecdote. I care about the data. I care about the total stats. I'm data driven. That's the only thing that matters. So
Very well said. Very well said, Brian. I like your perspective on that. All right. So far, right? FSD was rolled out in China. The Model Y, right? Quick comment, right? Well received. It's a killer, right? It's gonna be better. I think Grace Tao was just out. She posted saying that the Model Y was the number one best-selling car in the world in 2024, and she said there's only one car that's going to beat it in 2025, and that's the new Model Y.
But how can you possibly beat it if we've had so much downtime? And it's not really downtime, it's just slow time. And the answer is because it's quicker to build. It's easier to build. If you look at the production numbers coming out of China from just the first couple weeks of the new ramp, you're already seeing that it is as fast as it was before, meaning it's not all the way ramped. It's still got a little bit more, maybe 5%, 10% more headroom, maybe more. China gets it done. So there's, I took my kids down to see the new Model Y. We took a test drive.
Yeah.
And my son's impression was, I actually like it more in person. He liked the look of it, but in person, he liked it more. And we get in, we do our test drive. He's like, yeah, it's fine. It's good. It's great. And then we get in our car and he's like, oh, I get it. Our car is old. No, the new one is much nicer.
Yeah.
So the public sentiment for people who have experienced it is very positive. This will spur sales. It will. There are people who just want the new model. And if I had any honest complaints about my car, it is that the ride is a little rougher than I would like. The cabin noise is a little higher than I'd like, and the range isn't quite as good as I'd like. Those are the three big things that this update improves upon. So it checks all the boxes.
Okay. So that's Model Y. That's FSD in China. Well, Brian, I mean, we're expecting Q1 to be really down. And it's some cases I thought it was already built in, that most analysts had already recognized that Q1 is going to be down. But it seems to be that the stock is continuing to fall. And maybe it's due to that. Maybe it's due to Elon distractions. What's your thinking about the protests that are happening in the US, in Europe? The hate that seemed to rise against Teslas in general. Is this a short-term thing that's big deal? Is this going to be a long-term brand damage? What's your opinion on that?
The stock market is not, to me, a meaningful barometer of the health of a company. When the stock was trading at 110 not that long ago, I did not see anything in the fundamentals that would have made it lose 75% of its value. That's crazy. Likewise, when it ran back up to 480, I didn't see anything in the fundamentals that was driving it that high. It was all just sentiment. It was all hype. It was all speculation. And a lot of that is algorithm traders who don't care what the price is. They don't care what the product is. They just see movement on a graph and believe they can predict which direction it's going. And, on average, they're ever so slightly more accurate than not, which is why they haven't all gone out of business. We are definitely seeing headwinds in terms of public sentiment. The protests, the vandalism, the arson, that's not good. And there are I know people who would love to get a Cybertruck, and we're planning to once the rear-wheel drive version comes out. And now they're saying, I will wait until I am no longer feel like I'm putting a target on my back. And that's unfortunate, but it's reality. So one reason the stock is down that we can't ignore is a lot of stocks are down. The whole market is down. We've got chaos in the economy right now. In the part of the economy that the stock market cares about. Trade wars are not fun and good and easy to win. There are often no winners in a trade war, and we're engaging in them. And we just put new tariffs on our three largest trading partners. And I don't understand the motivation. I don't pretend to understand the motivation, but the market is not super jazzed about that.
Yeah. Tesla is a growth company. It's going to go wherever the economy goes first, right? It has to be risk on first before you start seeing those stocks. So Elon Musk, obviously that's really at the peak at this point of protests, hatred. So yeah, there's no doubt, right? There's like zero doubt at this point that it's impacting sales of cars it's impacting the stock, but I still think that at the end of the day, it's kind of a short term. And I also think that it's minimal. It's going to be significant, but cars is going to be minimal if what happens in 2025 is supposed to happen. So
Let's
we'll
talk
talk
about
about that
that real
shortly.
quick.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's well, so we are, like you said, this is the peak. This is the highest amount of anti-Elon sentiment there has ever been
Mm-hmm.
so far. We could still see new all-time highs. But let's pretend for a second that Elon doesn't change and that this is the new normal. Can the company recover? Yes, because the company is already pivoting to a B2B situation, business to business, where with Robotaxi, it doesn't matter if I like the company. If they've got the product that's substantially cheaper, it will win. Look at Nestle's reputation. Nestle has a very, very bad reputation around the world with human rights. We're talking dead babies from formula scandals, literally dead babies.
Yeah.
Do people, and there is an organized boycott Nestle campaign. It doesn't affect Nestle, and Nestle isn't even cheaper or better. It's just a big brand. So now imagine you do have a product that is better, that is cheaper, and that isn't murdering babies. I think that's a pretty good combination, and I can see why businesses would be able to overcome it. I had someone say, well, what happens when you have to factor into the price of your robotaxi fleet people vandalizing it? Okay, so let's say every car in your fleet gets vandalized once a year. How does that price compare to the salary you would have to pay a driver? It's less. It's way less. And guys, don't commit crimes. Let's just not. Two wrongs don't make a right. Don't set stuff on fire. Don't vandalize. Don't harm people. And please remember that there are 130,000 people at Tesla who are not named Elon Musk.
Exactly.
And only about half of them have kids with him.
I can always count on you, Brian. That's good. Okay. Very good comment so far. So that's great. I appreciate that, right? So short term, this is what it is. It's what's happening. Now, what are the near-term catalysts? So some people will say, sure, nothing will happen if you have an economy that is negative. Doesn't matter if Tesla announces anything, really. To a certain extent, but generally that's what's been happening, right? Anytime that there's a negative downturn, recession, all that, doesn't matter if Tesla makes an announcement. FSD in China, nothing happened to the stock. But fundamentals, what are we waiting for? We're waiting for FSD to roll out in China, which we got. We were waiting for the Model Y to transition, which we got. Perfect, by the way, both of them so far. Good results. Now we're waiting for the new model launches. We're expecting a bad Q1 report. What else are you expecting to happen in the near term?
You skipped over the Model Y ramp. The new Model Y will ramp. We will get to see what the real numbers are. We'll get to see what the real sales are. For all the hate that a Cybertruck owner may endure, I have never in all my travels encountered hate for the Model Y. There's too many of them. You can't hate all of us, and you can't assume that all of us love the company or even know what the company's doing on a day-to-day basis. It's just a car at that point. It's so common. So the Model Y sales, I am not as worried about as I would be with the Cybertruck. I'm concerned the Cybertruck now has a reputation that it labels its owner in ways that the old Hummer owners were thought of, and that's not ideal for a product. So we've got the Model Y ramp. What else have we got? Well, when the new models come out, because those are going to use the same lines as the 3 or Y, it stands to reason that because these will enter ideally in a new segment, a new part of the market that Tesla's not been in, it will allow better factory utilization of existing equipment while expanding sales in total. That's a big one. And then, of course, yes, in June, I feel like there might be something coming up in Austin that if it comes out in June, could change everything. And my guess is,
as far as you're concerned, it's still on track.
I haven't heard anything to tell me otherwise, but I do not know. I have not had any inside information on this. My speculation is that they're trying to time this release to coincide with the annual shareholder meeting, so that people who do come to town especially the institutional investors, will have an opportunity to experience it. Wouldn't it be fantastic if at the shareholder meeting, instead of using shuttle buses to get everybody to and from the parking lot, we all had robotaxis? That would be magical. And they could absolutely do that. It would be a swarm of them because buses have so much higher capacity, but it would just be better in every way. Just do it. Yeah. So there's, can they do it? Yes. The question is how many remote operators? Ideally, the number in the future will be one for every 1,000 or 10,000 who is just there in case someone has a heart attack.
Yeah.
In case someone gets, I would say, well, how will they know if it gets a flat tire? Well, how do you know if it gets a flat tire? It has a pressure monitor. If it sees the tire pressure go from 42 PSI to 0, I have a pretty good suspicion I know what's going on. So that would, the car pulls over, and a person could, the screen could just tell you another vehicle is en route. It'll be here in 3 minutes. Get in that one. But you might be concerned to a degree where you need to say, where you poke the button and say, look, there's cars swarming around. I don't know where it's going to go. And a human will need to be there. At launch, they could have an excessive number of remote operators just in case. And because they own all the vehicles, they could say, look, we're only going, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. or even we're only going on, and then just have the staff available at that time. So they can absolutely do it today. They could have done it 3 years ago with remote operators, but the objective is to have as few as possible, kind of a rounding error to none.
Okay. Yeah. So you're right that they could actually do it today. I agree with that. I can see that so far everything's pointing that it's still going to be on track for June. Just as recent as 2 weeks ago, multiple Tesla executives were talking about it's still on track for June. Anything can happen at any point. So I'm not counting 100% on this yet, but so far it is. Now, what happens if they do delay? What happens if it's not available? Morgan Stanley's note that came out, they had one line there that said that we expect the initial company or city rollout in 2026. But in the same way, they also said we're very pessimistic, like conservative, trying to be very conservative about Robotaxi. They believe it's going to happen. They just want to push everything off just in case.
So what happens in that case? Okay. If you're asking me to speculate, I'm happy to do that. Here's what you could do is say, we're not doing a citywide rollout, but we have invited, institutional investors to come and see what we've got, and you give them rides, just anywhere you want to go. We'll drag you around in it so you can see that it is real, but we're not ready to go citywide. I don't know if they would go that far. I feel like they wouldn't. They would just kind of push it off and say, give us another 2 months. We saw the delay for 8.8 get out to 10.10. The information that we have says the change was to add the light bar. Seems like a long time to add a light bar, but I think also the logistics of putting together an event as big as We Robot is a lot of work. There's a lot that goes into making an event that size, and those extra 2 months would be very helpful in terms of getting it organized.
Yeah, it could be delayed, but at this point, things are looking good. So you've got the 2 new affordable models. That seems to be on track. You've got the Robotaxi launch. That seems to be on track. Is there anything else that you're expecting execution delays? That's what the pessimists would be saying at this point, beyond the brand challenges.
Over near term? No, I can't think of anything else this year. No, beginning of the ramp of Semi could be this year. That would be not a huge revenue driver, but interesting. They are still building more of them on the pilot line. I'm not sure why. At some point, I think you'll just shut off the pilot line and say, look, the numbers that we're capable of making this week are laughable compared to the numbers we'll be making in 3 months. What are we doing? But it could be that they're tweaking final designs. We know that design lock is more of a real thing at other companies where Tesla is constantly iterating. If you find an improvement, why on earth would we wait until next year or next product cycle to introduce it? Get it in there now. But even Tesla is sometimes beholden to that. They have 48 volt architecture. It is not on anything but the Cybertruck yet, because as good as it is, we still need all the suppliers to make their parts of it, and getting them on board is a lot more challenging. So yeah, the Semi is another one.
Okay, so let's pause that. I'm curious to see your answer to this question. So you've got, the big one, right? We got to see Robotaxi. That's the thing we're all waiting for. That's what's going to change Tesla. But is there a chance that Tesla, as a car company, can come back in higher growth? Like people start to recognize, oh my gosh, we are going to get to 35%, maybe even 50% growth. If they release the two new, more affordable vehicles, if they come out as like just shock the market, it's like, my God, these are going to sell like hotcakes. Are you expecting, if they announce new factories, like Giga India, they announce even another one saying, hey, we are building like crazy. We expect to hit these numbers. Are you thinking that the end of this year, it's going to be the same number as last year in terms of vehicles sold? Are it going to be higher? Where are you standing on that?
I had initially projected that this year would be over 2 million, even if just by a hair. But I am no longer comfortable making predictions. If the more affordable model comes out and is what we want it to be, then we're looking at 2.1, 2.2. If it fizzles at all. But the real trick is that we've got a lot of uncertainty in the market. The cost of steel, imported steel, is going to be prohibitive. Additional tariffs on batteries coming in for all manufacturers apart from Tesla. There's a lot of economic insanity going on, and we just don't know how it's going to play out.
There you go. That's the right answer. Appreciate you, Brian. You're on fire today. If you want to hear more brilliant insights, go check out FutureAza. Follow him there. Thank you, Brian. Talk to you soon. I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.